church benches and into the trenches. Let's make a righteous ruckus.
Hi, welcome to this episode of the Righteous Ruckus podcast. I'm your host, Riley Lowe, and I hope you enjoyed the, I guess you'd call sneak bonus episode last week when I forgot or slipped my mind. I got so enthralled and so into the other miracles that I left out one that was quite significant. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. This week, I want to get into some current events. What I mean by current events is a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to talk about him and then one of his teammates, and then I'm going to read some scripture that kind of is very, very pertinent in what's going on in our culture today. Which, in case you don't know, we have stepped into the. There was the. You had the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Stone Age, and right now we're in the Clown Age. It apparently seems, and that'll be more evident here in a few days whenever we enter the month of June, and the colorful clown makeup, rainbow-colored hair of clowns turns into just actually being the whole Pride Month. Your mind how much that's going to be. It just gets worse every year, guys. It really does. And actually, Harrison Butker, he addressed that. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Harrison Butker. He is a kicker, place kicker, guy that kicks extra points and field goals for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, right? He spoke to, there was an article I read that says Super Bowl champ and kicker spoke about the dignity of life, masculinity, and the most important role of all, motherhood. Right? So offensive. Oh my goodness. How dare he? Like I said, we're in clown world. Kansas City Chiefs place kicker Harrison Butker, he spoke to college graduates in his commencement address on May 11th at Benedictine College. I believe that's in Kansas. So I want to go through some excerpts here. And I'm actually going to title this message, Butker versus Kelce. And you'll see the juxtaposition there when I get there. So, here we go. This was some excerpts. It was a lengthy speech. He gave a commencement speech. They take a while. But these are some of the controversial, I hit some of the controversial things. And when I say controversial, bear in mind, controversial to the media, controversial to the culture, right? Truth is counterculture. It just is. It hasn't always been counterculture. I think probably always has to an extent. But it's definitely counterculture now. And you will see this. So here are some excerpts, and I'll provide some commentary along the way. So while COVID might have played a large role throughout your formative years, it is not unique. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as growing support for degenerate cultural values in media all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Yes. So he had a list there, right? Saying basically COVID's not the biggest thing here, folks. Abortion, killing little babies. IVF, in vitro fertilization, where they create genetically unique humans, and while they're embryos, freeze them, use some of them, and discard the rest. So you're essentially the same thing as abortion. You're killing babies in the process. Surrogacy. Now, I don't know exactly his bone to pick with surrogacy because I'm not super familiar with the interworkings of surrogacy. If you'd like to enlighten me on what his issue may be for surrogacy, you can let me know. Other than somebody else having your children. I think probably has something to do because it's similar to IVF, right? They take the embryo and they put it in there. Well, if you're, IVF is involved in that, then yes, probably not a good idea. Euthanasia. We're going to kill you because you're not useful. I mean, we're going to let you make the decision to kill yourself as we progress towards this person's no longer useful. They need to die. As well as growing support for degenerate cultural values. I just mentioned the clown world getting ready to show up in the month of June, right? That's the alphabet soup group is going to take over, as you've seen them. They already do, and it's going to be a nut show. Actually, if you go to never mind. I'm gonna bite my tongue on that. I was gonna say nut show, kind of like what you'll probably see if you go to one of them parades. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. Now, the only issue that I have with Harrison Butker's speech, and he's talking to a Catholic university, so it's proper here for him to be saying this, is that he's equivocating Catholicism with Christianity, and they're not the same. And that's really the only bone I had to pick here. Now, are their values, their cultural values the same? To a large degree, yes. Is the actual, is Catholicism Christianity? No, it's not. Maybe someday I'll do an episode on why that's the case. So he's saying you can't be Catholic and pro-choice, which is right. Which pro-choice is the clever term for what? Pro killing babies. You say, no, it's pro letting women to choose. To choose what? To choose to go to the grocery store, to choose to work in a coal mine, to choose to play a sport, to choose to wear shorts above the knee. No, to choose to kill a kid. That's what the choice is there. Now, then he goes on to say, he is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They're Catholic. That's one of the ways I would distinguish between Catholicism and Christianity. Or that's a hint to it anyway. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. Of course, that begs the question, if that person qualifies as Catholic and is doing them, are you saying that that is Catholicism? That they need Catholicism plus some sort of cultural values? Anyway, that can lead me down a big tangent and open up a big can of worms, so I'm not going to go there right now. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. The difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, he's echoing Esther there, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. I completely agree there. We must always speak and act in charity, that's in other words, kind of in love, but never mistake charity for cowardice. Love is not being a coward. The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Notice how that's always the case here. Diversity does not mean diverse. It means only focusing in on one set of values, and there's no other acceptable set of values. No other acceptable people. No other acceptable mindset. There's only one acceptable thing. That's not diverse. That's actually exclusive. Equity. All right. That's saying that they all get the same outcome, which is not the case. Because if you are excluding Christian values, Christian morals, then there can be no equity there. And inclusion. Inclusion. Notice they always want to exclude in the name of inclusion. That's the way it goes. It doesn't make any sense. It's a logical fallacy. And it's actually an oxymoron, which part of that word can be used to describe a big portion of the people that follow diversity, equity, inclusion teachings. We fear speaking truth. Notice I said truth is countercultural because now, unfortunately, the truth is in the minority. All right, now we're going to get into this here. For the ladies, how many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world, which those are two things that should be top priorities because the culture ceases to exist without mothers. It just does. To the gentlemen today, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities. Remember the whole women's lib movement, a lot of that is men take a back seat, when as men are leaders. So women and men are different but complementary. That statement right there that'll get you canceled. That'll get you shut up. That'll get you in trouble. As men, we set the tone of the culture. And when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in. Look at what's going on in our culture. This absence of men in the home is what plays a large role in the violence we see all around our nation. Other countries do not have nearly the same absentee father rates as we find here in the U.S., and a correlation could be made in their drastically lower violence rates as well. Now, I would be curious as what he's tying in there as violence rates, but never mind. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy. You might have a talent that you don't necessarily enjoy, but if it glorifies God, maybe you should lean into that over something that you might think suits you better. All right? That's one of the reasons why I do this podcast. One of the reasons why I speak, why I do things, all right, is because I believe it's what God has called me to do. I just do. So that wraps up the majority of his controversial statements. He's saying, follow morals, right? Be of moral character and conform to the roles that are outlined in the Bible. Today, you say that, you will get blasted, as been evident. So, in case you've been out of the loop or living under a rock, this guy got just raked over the coals over this whole commencement speech, talking about how he hates women, he's against women's health, he's against all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. You know, basically a guy saying, I'm of moral character and I think you should be too. That's more important than your career is to do that. All right. Now, he says this at a Catholic university and gets just drug over the coals over this whole deal. Like I said, it's just blasted all over the media. It was all in the news for a good week. It's been there and it's still there. I'm still seeing these are the reactions. Now, basically, they didn't go to him and say, please explain this further. Tell me about this. And he promised you he would have gladly done so. What they did was they took out the bits and pieces and they plastered Harrison Butker thinks that women need to just be homemakers. That was all the headlines, right? He's against women's health. All over the headlines, right? And it blows my mind. So one of his teammates, Travis Kelce, was already famous for being an exceptional athlete, a tight end for the same team, for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, right? More recently, like within the last 6 months or a year, right, he's been dating Taylor Swift, who loves being pro-choice. She loves the murder of kids. And I know that probably just sent some of you and going, what? She loves the murder of kids. Yeah, she's pro-choice, you know. And her character, moral character, has been in a somewhat slow decline just off the bits and pieces that I've seen, right? I'm as guilty as the next person as judging a person based off of headlines. I haven't delved into that. Seemingly, her moral character is in decline. And so Travis Kelce, this was his speech. He received a degree, him and his brother, Jason Kelce. They received degrees, I think it was the University of Cincinnati, like a school of business or something like that. And at that graduation, he kind of grabbed the mic and decided to give a surprise speech. And now bear in mind, this was an unplanned deal. It probably was planned, but anyway. So this was his speech, right? This is an athlete that has won a Super Bowl, a couple Super Bowls, I think, and actually is dating Taylor Swift, who I would argue to say is a religious leader. If you look at her followers, are somewhat religious about Taylor Swift. They just are. So this was his insightful advice. Now, he stood there with a beer in his hand, right? A beer in his hand. To all my fellow students, I have a few words of advice. You got to fight for your right to party. If you're waiting for something deep or insightful or actually useful, you're not going to find it here. You're not. Now, he was quoting a Beastie Boys song, and, and they were all excited. Everybody was like, yay. Now, the irony here is that when you looked at the headlines, it was Travis Kelce gives surprise speech. Not controversial. Not questionable. He's encouraging college-age young adults to engage in drunken debauchery. That's what he's encouraging them to do. However, no criticism. Zero criticism. He actually wound up chugging the beer on stage and making a mess of everything. If a normal student had done that, they would have been in trouble likely. I don't know. Maybe these universities, probably not these days. I don't know. So it's just crazy the difference in the reception between the two. Dust to settle, right? They've waited for the dust to settle, and it took a good 3, 4, 5 days before you saw like Patrick Mahomes, which is the quarterback for that team. They asked him about it. And of course, hey, that's not my values, but I like him. I like the guy. I like Harrison. So, he can have his opinions. I'll have mine. That's kind of what Travis Kelce did too. He's just like, hey, I don't really agree with really anything that he said. So, but those are his opinions. He can have them. They waited until they could put their finger to the wind and see which way the culture shifts, right? And what they saw was initially the NFL puts out a scathing statement against Harrison Butker, saying his statements, his views do not reflect anything about the NFL, which that tells you about the NFL right there, right? which means they are against all those things that he said, which means they are against the family, they're against women and against men. So they're 100% against the Western society, right? But it is what it is. So, and then, however, after that, the silent majority that we always claim is there, and somewhat it is. I believe it is. People need to be poked and woke up, right? Harrison Butker, a kicker, his jersey is number one in sales right now because people are trying to show support with Harrison Butker. However, I would question how much of that money actually gets to Harrison Butker, even though it is a statement purchase, right? People are buying the jersey to make a statement to the NFL showing, no, we like this guy. We like this guy. And what they've seen is the public outcry, not the media outcry. The media has been steadfast against everything he said because they're trying to control cultural views. But the actual public, the actual people are in support of what he said. They're like, there's nothing wrong with what this dude said. And they've seen the winds of public opinion go towards Harrison Butker. So now they're not going to say, I agree with him. They're going to say, look, he can have his opinion. He's a good guy. And I can have my opinion, right? And actually, I just saw, here's a headline. Jason Kelce, this is Travis Kelce's brother, who just recently retired. He told his wife, quote, make me a sandwich after Harrison Butker's graduation speech. Now, they're not criticizing him for that. They're saying he joked about it. Because he's tied in with a pop culture icon like Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, they're quick to brush off any humor, right? However, imagine if Harrison Butker had said that at the end of his commencement speech, men, be sure and tell your wives to make you a sandwich. You could have, it would be those videos of those ultra left people just screaming, ah! That's what would be happening. Heads would be exploding, right? But, and even if he had said it in jest, it would be like that. It's just the double standard is so blatant. So what I want to cover here also, let's get into God's word. I know we're late in the game here. We're going to get into God's word. All right. I've said for a long time, a crazy amount of time, that we live in a Romans 1 world. And what I mean by that is it's basically Romans 1 when we talk about being bold for God, but then God's wrath on our culture. Listen, and he's preaching to the Romans, right? Which our system of government comes from the Roman form of government, the Republic, right? So there's a lot of similarities there, and there's a lot of similarities in the rise of our empire and the downfall, right? So he's preaching to Romans. Now, I'm going to start in Romans 1, verse 16. And then continue to the end of Romans 1. And listen to see if this doesn't describe, Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun, right? You'll see. People say, oh, the Bible's thousands of years old. That doesn't apply to us. Check this out. Romans 1, verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first, and also for the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Remember, I said truth is counterculture. They suppress the truth in unrighteousness because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse, because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like incorruptible man, and birds, and four-footed animals, and creeping things. In other words, worshiping the creation rather than the creator, even though creation points directly to a creator. Verse 24, therefore God gave them up to uncleanness in the lusts of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason God gave them up to vile passions, for even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. In other words, other women, or bestiality, or who knows what else. Likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust for one another, homosexuality. Men with men committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error which was due. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind, to do things which are not fitting, be filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evilness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who, knowing the righteous judgment of God in those who practice such things, are deserving of death. Not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. You got that whole list of all that awful things that are going on, and not only now get ready for this, because this is coming up in June. It's already everywhere, but it goes into overdrive in June with the Alphabet Soup crowd. But not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. So you are lumped into that group of just awful, awful, awful behaviors. If maybe you say, I'm not doing it, but I clap and applaud and approve those who do, right? Instead of rebuking, you are approving. You're lumped right in there. So that just as a perfect description, that last little part about everything that's jacked up in our society. And what you have is two players on the same team. One adheres to a set of morals and values that closely align with Christian morals and values, and the other one is just living in the world, doing whatever, right? He's a superstar, dating a superstar, and he's encouraging the world to just party it up. You're never going to die. Have a good time, drink some beer, and fight for your right to party. And I don't know. And he's one of those that say he's applauding those, approving of those who practice them. He's one of those approving, right, and practicing. And you got he is celebrated as, look at this fun guy, isn't he so cool? And then you got the guy who said, you need to adhere to biblical values. And he is completely, there's a character assassination attempt going on to that guy. Thankfully it's not successful, but it's definitely trying to happen. So it's just showing further examples that, like when Jesus said, look, don't be worried if the world hates you because they hated me first, right? We are not supposed to be of the world. We are not of the world, right? We are destined. If you are saved, you are destined, and you are new creation, and you are destined for heaven, right? You are supposed to be being sanctified, becoming more and more Christ-like. That's your goal. Your goal is not to fight for your right to party. Your goal is to be more and more like Christ. So I just wanted to point out, and I mean, which camp are you in? Are you leaning more towards one than the other? I lean, like I said, I've got a lot of bones to pick with Catholicism. But as far as his set of values and what he claims to say in that speech, I give him props, man. I give the man props for laying it out there, because he knew he was going to get pushed back. He knew it. And that's what happens. And you have to be prepared. I want you to get in the Word, man, and study up and be prepared that you will suffer in this world if you follow Christ. You just will, but the results of that suffering can lead others to Christ. It just can. How you handle that, how you handle your life, how you handle society condemning what you say or condemning your actions, it's worth it. Trust me, it's worth it. You're storing up rewards in heaven. All right, this is not our home, guys. This is not our home. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm sure you've all heard about it, but I just want to point that out and give my 2 cents, right? Because I know that everybody in the media and everybody around the world is waiting to hear what I think about about this. So anyway, I just wanted to give that insight and just that juxtaposition, man. It's just the 2-tier justice system and the court of public opinion is very evident in this situation. And I just wanted to encourage you to always stand on the side of Christ.